Townshend was born in Chiswick West London, at the Chiswick Hospital Netheravon Road in the UK. He came from a musical family. His father, Cliff Townshend of Irish descent, was a professional alto saxophonist in the Royal Air Force's dance band the Squadronaires, and his mother, Betty, was a singer with the Sidney Torch and Les Douglas Orchestras. The Townsends had a volatile marriage, as both drank heavily and possessed fiery tempers. Cliff Townshend was often away from his family touring with his band, while Betty carried on affairs with other men. The two split when Townshend was a toddler, and he was sent to live with his maternal grandmother Emma Dennis, whom Pete later described as clinically insane. The 2-year separation ended when Cliff and Betty purchased a house together on Woodgrange Avenue in middle-class Acton, and the young Pete was happily reunited with his parents. His neighborhood was 1/3 Polish, and a devout Jewish family upstairs shared their housing with them and cooking with them. Many of his father's closest friends were Jewish. Townshend says he did not have many friends growing up, so he spent much of his boyhood reading adventure novels like Gulliver's Travels and Treasure Island. He enjoyed his family's frequent excursions to the seaside and the Isle of Man. It was on one of these trips in the summer of 1956 that he repeatedly watched the 1956 film Rock Around the Clock, sparking his fascination with American rock and roll. Not long thereafter, he went to see Bill Haley perform in London Townshend's first concert. At the time, he did not see himself pursuing a career as a professional musician. Instead, he wanted to become a journalist. Townshend's brothers Paul and Simon were born in 1957 and 1960, respectively. Lacking the requisite grades to attend university, Pete was faced with the decision of art school, music school, or getting a job. He ultimately chose to study graphic design at Ealing Art College, enrolling in 1961. At Ealing, Townshend studied alongside future Rolling Stones guitarist Ronnie Wood. Townshend dropped out in 1964 to focus on music full-time. In late 1961, Entwistle joined the Detours, a skiffle rock and roll band led by Roger Daltrey. The new bass player then suggested Townshend join as an additional guitarist. In the early days of the Detours, the band's repertoire consisted of instrumentals by the Shadows and the Ventures, as well as pop and trad jazz covers. Their lineup coalesced around Roger Daltrey on rhythm guitar, Townshend on lead guitar, Entwistle on bass, Doug Sandom on drums, and Colin Dawson as vocalist. Daltrey was considered the leader of the group and, according to Townshend, ran things the way he wanted them. Dawson quit in 1962 after arguing too much with Daltrey, and who subsequently moved to lead vocalist. As a result, Townshend, with Entwistle's encouragement, became the sole guitarist. Through Townshend's mother, the group obtained a management contract with local promoter Robert Druce, who started booking the band as a support act for bands including Screaming Lord Sutch, Cliff Bennett and the Rebel Rousers, Shane Fenton and the Fent Ones, and Johnny Kidd and the Pirates. In 1963, Townshend's father arranged an amateur recording of It Was You, the first song his son ever wrote. The Detours became aware of a group of the same name in February 1964, forcing them to change their name. Townshend's roommate Richard Barnes came up with The Who, and Daltrey decided it was the best choice. Not long after the name change, drummer Doug Sandom was replaced by Keith Moon, who had been drumming semi-professionally with the Beachcombers for several years. The band was soon taken on by a mod publicist named Peter Meaden, who convinced them to change their name to the High Numbers to give the band more of a mod feel. After bringing out one failed single, they dropped Meaden and were signed on by two new managers, Chris Stamp and Kit Lambert, who had paired up with the intention of finding new talent and creating a documentary about them. The band anguished over a name that all felt represented the band best, and dropped the High Numbers name, reverting to The Who. In June 1964, during a performance at the Railway Tavern, Townshend accidentally broke the top of his guitar on the low ceiling and proceeded to destroy the entire instrument. The on-stage destruction of instruments soon became a regular part of The Who's live shows. In 1970, The Who released Live at Leeds, which several music critics cite as the best live album of all time. Townshend began writing material for another rock opera, dubbed Lifehouse. It was designed to be a multimedia project that symbolized the relationship between a musician and his audience. The rest of the band were confused by its convoluted plot and simply wanted another album. Townshend began to feel alienated, and the project was abandoned after he suffered a nervous breakdown. Much of the material intended for Lifehouse was released as a traditional studio album, Who's Next. It became a commercial smash, reaching #1 in the UK. and spawned two successful hit singles, Baba O'Reilly and Won't Get Fooled Again, that featured pioneering use of the synthesizer. Baba O'Reilly in particular was written as Townshend's ode to his two heroes at the time, Mayor Baba and composer Terry Riley. In short, The Who continues despite the deaths of two of the original members. The band is regarded by many rock critics as one of the best live bands from the 1960s to the 2000s. The Who continues to perform critically acclaimed sets into the 21st century, including highly regarded performances at the Concert for New York City in 2001, the 2004 Isle of Wight Festival Live 8 in 2005, and the 2007 Glastonbury Festival. Townshend remained the primary songwriter and leader of the group, writing over 100 songs which appeared on the band's 11 studio albums. Among his creations is the rock opera Quadrophenia. Townshend revisited album-length storytelling throughout his career, and remains associated with the rock opera. In addition to his work with The Who, Townshend has been sporadically active as a solo recording artist. Between 1969 and 1971, Townshend, along with other devotees to Mayor Baba, recorded a trio of albums devoted to his teachings Happy Birthday, I Am and With Love. In response to bootlegging of these, he compiled his personal highlights and released his first major label solo title, 1972's Who Came First. It was a moderate success and featured demos of Who songs as well as a showcase of his acoustic guitar talents. He collaborated with The Faces bassist and fellow Mayor Baba devotee Ronnie Wood on a duet album. In 1979, Townshend produced and performed guitar on the novelty single Peppermint Lump by Angie on Stiff Records, featuring 11-year-old Angela Porter on lead vocals. From the mid-1990s through the present, Townshend has participated in a series of tours with the surviving members of The Who, including a 2002 tour that continued despite Entwistle's death. In February 2006, a major world tour by The Who was announced to promote their first new album since 1982. Townshend published a semi-autobiographical story, The Boy Who Heard Music as a Serial, on a blog beginning in September 2005. The Age of Anxiety, formerly Floss, the musical, is the name given to a work in progress by Townshend. The musical has been a work in progress at least since 2009, with an original estimated release of 2011. On the 24th of January 2012, Townshend sold the rights to all of his back catalog and much of his future work, including Floss the musical if it is ever completed. He summarized the work in an interview with Sirius Satellite Radio, published February 2010. In a 2015 interview, Townshend stated that the work was intended to be an art installation. In March 2019, it was announced that a work entitled The Age of Anxiety would be published as a novel with an opera to follow.